Scary story. Hello, my horror story lovers. Put on your headphones and get comfortable. Enjoy. Not everyone will be able to wake up after an encounter with this demon. Kira slung her leg up on the table, nearly knocking over her mug. She hated things like this. The photograph she was fiddling with showed a burly man named Viktor Sokolov, a friend of the group, weighing 120 kilograms, lying in his blue bed. The police theory was a domestic incident. His wife, Sveta, had smothered him with a pillow in his sleep. Banal and boring. I'm not a local police officer to dig into domestic incidents, Kira grumbled into the emptiness of her smoke-filled office. But Sveta, his wife, swore she hadn't killed him. That's why her family had hired Kira. Kira went to the scene. An ordinary two-room apartment, in a sleeping bag. The police photos were creepy, but Kira noticed the strange marks on our Viktor. They didn't look like fingerprints, more like burns from something icy, thin, jagged lines, and the expression on his face. You know, sometimes his face is surprised, sometimes angry, but his was frozen in a moment of absolute animal terror, as if he'd seen the end of the world. His wife, all tears in her eyes, sat in the kitchen. He's been screaming lately, she whispered. Every night he'd jump up and scream that there was someone in the room. I thought it was a squirrel, but he drank, you know. But that night I woke up to silence. He was just lying there. I touched him, and he was cold. Kira sipped her remaining coffee. Something didn't add up. The bruises on Sveta's body. Yes, there were. Victor had beaten her. An ironclad motive. But those marks on her neck. The key was found in the nursery. The murdered man's 8-year-old daughter, Lena, was sitting on the floor, pinned against the wall. A silent girl with eyes as huge as mustaches. She wasn't crying. She just stared into space, hugging an old teddy bear missing one eye. Kira squatted down next to her. She smelled of coffee and tobacco. Hi. I'm Kira, she said, as softly as possible. Your bear is cool. Lena didn't answer. She only clutched the toy tighter. Lena. Mom said Dad screamed at night. Did you hear that? The girl nodded slowly. That he screamed. Lena turned her giant childish eyes on her. There was emptiness in them. He was screaming for her to go away. Something about Mara. He was saying, "Go away, Mara. That's enough." Something inside Kira clicked. Mara. Who is this? Someone he knew. Lena shook her head. He said she comes when you sleep. He said she will take everyone. Kira felt an unpleasant shiver run down her spine. And you saw her. This Mara. Lena suddenly looked her straight in the eyes, intently, and whispered, "She's looking at you over your shoulder now." Kira turned nervously. An empty hallway. An old flower on the wallpaper. She stood up, trying to keep her hands from shaking. Children are such dreamers. Stress. Fathers dying. A perpetually drunk dad and a frightened mother. But that look, and that's when it got really interesting. Kira, with her nose for all things mystic, smelled something fishy. A brawl. No way. Kira didn't come home that night. She stayed at the office. Rain poured outside, washing away the grayness of the city. The computer monitor was the only source of light. She Googled, Mara Dream Demon, and then it began. Kira fell into a real world of myths and various creepy stories. Mara, Kikimara, the Night Strangler. In English mythology, an old Korga, whose essence comes to those sleeping, sits on their chest, and causes paralysis. It doesn't kill outright. It feeds on fear, feeds on life force. An ancient evil that steals the souls of the sleeping, some Isaurian website claimed. Souls. What nonsense. But then she stumbled upon something else. Forums. People discussing sleep and paralysis. Thousands of stories. And all of them seemed to be carbon copies. I woke up, but I couldn't move. My body felt like it was in concrete. I felt someone in the room. It was standing in the corner. It sat on my chest. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to die. I saw a shadow. It looked like a tall, thin woman, or just a lump of immense darkness. Goosebumps ran down her spine like cockroaches on a hot stove. She found the medical term sudden nocturnal death syndrome. Most often, young, healthy men simply go to bed and don't wake up. The official cause, arrhythmia, cardiac arrest. Unofficial version, in the Philippines, they blame it all on a demon that sits on the chest. Kira closed the tabs, her head pounding. Nonsense. All this nonsense. A coincidence. Victor simply drank himself into oblivion. His heart couldn't take it. The girl had listened to her father's drunken ravings. She leaned back. The office was quiet. Only the rain pounded on the eaves. She closed her eyes for just a moment, just to give them rest. Creak. Kira's eyes flew open. The floor in her office creaked right next to the door. She stared into the dark doorway. Was it her imagination? Or was it darker than usual in the corner where her coat hung? As if someone was standing there. Someone very tall, thin. Enough, she said out loud. Overworked. She got up, turned on the overhead light. No one there, just a raincoat. But she never went home that night. For the next few days, Kira didn't read about Demon Mara anymore. She worked. She was a detective. damn it. She started digging into Viktor. Debts, enemies, nothing. An ordinary guy, a factory worker, drank, beat his wife, everything. But that night at the office haunted her. If there was one death, there could be others. She dug into the archives, police reports for the past 5 years. She was looking for nothing. She was looking for death in sleep, 'cause undetermined, or sudden cardiac arrest in a healthy patient. And she found 3 cases, all in her area. 2 years ago, a 38-year-old man, Sergey, healthy as an ox, went to bed, and never woke up. His wife heard him suffocating. 4 years ago, a 29-year-old woman, Anya, the same thing. Death in a dream, left behind a young son. 5 years ago, a teenager, 7. Before their death, everyone complained of terrible nightmares, of someone pressing on their chest. Everyone had small children or younger siblings who heard screams. Kira went to see Sergey's widow. Yes, it happened. Seryoza had gone completely crazy. He said some old woman was choking him in his sleep. The old woman said she whispered to him that she would take him away. I thought he was going crazy from working so much. And then there was his heart. Kira showed her a photo of our Viktor's footprints. The woman turned pale. Seryoza had the same ones. I thought he scratched himself when he was suffocating. Kira left her on weak legs. This is not delirium. This is not a coincidence. This is a hunt. And now she knew that Kira was on her trail. And then the nightmares began. Kira, who usually fell asleep like a dead mammon, was now afraid to close her eyes. The first night was a classic. That sleep paralysis. She woke up in the middle of the night. Her body was like stone. She couldn't move a hand or a leg. She could only stare. The room was flooded with moonlight. In the corner near the closet she was standing. It wasn't a shadow, it was a figure. Tall, skinny, wrapped in some dark rags. Her face was invisible, just a dark hole under the hood. It stood and stared. Kira tried to scream. Only a strangled wheeze came out. Panic, sticky, cold, like the sweat of a dead man, covered her. It fed on fear. It surfaced in her head. She tried to fight it, tried to think of something else. A shopping list, taxes, anything. The figure slowly took a step toward her. Kira panicked even more. The figure stopped, as if enjoying itself, and then everything disappeared. Kira sighed sharply, jumping up in bed, drenched in sweat. The room was empty. It had been a dream, just a stress-induced dream, but she knew she was lying to herself. The second night, she left the nightlight on. It didn't help. She woke up again. The figure was already at the bedside. She saw it, long bony arms like dry branches, and she heard a whisper right in her head. Tired. You're so tired. The voice was calm and soothing. Kira closed her eyes, trying to wake up, and then she felt someone's icy fingers on her throat. They just lay there, examining like a surgeon examining an incision. The cold was unbearable. It penetrated the skin and into the very bone. Kira howled, and woke up. She sat up in bed, clutching her throat. There was no light. The nightlight was off, although she clearly remembered turning it on. Kira stopped sleeping. Literal quantities of coffee, cans of energy drinks. She had become a walking zombie with red eyes. She was trying to work. She had to find a way to stop this. She searched for information on how to fight Mara. The forums were full of stupid advice. Put a knife under your pillow. Sleep with your feet toward the door. Put your shirt on backwards. Nonsense. She tried to find a connection between the victims. Mutual acquaintances. The same place. Nothing. They weren't connected. The only connection was that they all complained of fatigue and nightmares before Mara took them. She chose those who were already on the edge. Those with weak defenses. Kira looked at her reflection in the dark screen of the computer. Pale, exhausted face. Dark circles under her eyes. She was the perfect target. But Mara knew how to wait. Kira was overcome by dreams for seconds. You're walking down the office corridor, lost in thought, and suddenly the corridor lengthens. It becomes endless, and at the end a dark figure. You blink. Everything is fine. An ordinary corridor. She called Sveta, asking about Lena. She's strange. Sveta cried into the phone. She hardly speaks. Only draws. She always draws a tall woman in black. Kira hung up. The demon wasn't just killing its victim. It was targeting the entire family. Mara was getting closer to the girl. Kira had to hold on. She sat in the kitchen with all the lights on. The radio quietly muttered some pop music. She spread salt around herself. Another folk remedy. Nonsense. But it will be calmer. She looked at her hands. They were shaking. I have to sleep for at least an hour. Otherwise I'll just die of cardiac arrest. Like them, I'll ruin myself. She decided to take a nap right there in the kitchen. On a hard chair under a bright lamp. She set the alarm on her phone for an hour, and finally closed her eyes. Tired as hell, Kira fell asleep instantly, as if someone had turned her off. She opened her eyes. She wasn't in the kitchen. She was lying in her bed. The room was dark and quiet. That same thick silence. No, no, no. This is a dream. I have to wake up. She tried to move, but her body wouldn't obey. Fuck. Wake up. Wake up. Kira. Fuck. Wake up. She heard breathing. On the pillow a few centimeters from her face. Someone was breathing. Slowly. A dry inhale and a long whistling exhale. Kira squinted. In the darkness, she saw a silhouette. It was lying next to her. It turned its head towards her. There was no face. Just darkness. But she felt it smiling. You came. She whispered in her head. Reality is what you feel. And you feel fear. A hand, icy as a frozen branch, slowly rose and rested on her chest. Heaviness. She couldn't breathe. It's just a dream. Just a dream. I've been waiting for you. I'm so hungry. The demon leaned toward her face. Kira smelled it. The smell of decay and grave cold. She no longer struggled. The fatigue was too strong. And there in that viscous paralyzing darkness, the clutches of the demon who had waited so long for his victim awaited her.